Let's bring in Jeff Pearlman. The book, Showtime, available in bookstores today. Jeff joins us now. What made you dive into this story, this topic, Jeff?
I'm a child of the 80s. I grew up a pretty diehard New Jersey Nets fan during the Pearl Washington Dennis Hobson era.
Oh.
Nobody showed much interest in the New Jersey Nets bio from the 1980s.
Nobody's clamoring to find out the inside story of how they did it so well?
Yeah, I had 2 chapters already written on Chris Morris, and nobody wanted it. So,
Chris Morris! Oh God, you're taking me a trip down memory lane.
Yeah.
But when you dive into this, it's a treasure trove of stories there because you had good storytellers. But who was the one person you had to talk to with Showtime?
Well, this is going to sound weird, but the best stories I got from anyone were from Wes Matthews.
Well, he loves to talk.
He's a great talker.
Yeah.
And one great story after another, after another, after another. And, with these books, a lot of times, it's not the obvious guys you would think, Kareem or Worthy. It's the guys who are there but haven't had a chance to tell their stories a million times.
Well, Wes was a star, Wisconsin, and, kind of a journeyman in the NBA. So he had a good seat to all of this.
He did. And he had, I would say one of my favorite stories in the book actually came. There's this famous picture from the 1980s of Wes Matthews being strangled by Xavier McDaniel, and when X-Man was with Seattle.
Yeah.
And so Wes Matthews told me this story. He swore it was true. He said he's from Bridgeport, Connecticut, very tough kid, tough town. And he said after the game, a bunch of his friends from Bridgeport called and said, "Don't worry, we're going to take care of the X-Man."
No.
And said next time the Sonics go to Madison Square Garden, a bunch of his guys get into the tunnel and tell Xavier McDaniel, if you play tonight, there's going to be trouble. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. And I go back home, and I check the box score. And Xavier McDaniel was an Iron Man. I check the box score. Xavier McDaniel, DNP versus the Knicks.
Wow.
And Wes Matthews was fined $10,000 by the NBA for threatening Xavier McDaniel.
Wow. But you had the whole back and forth. I got the privilege to cover Showtime when the Lakers and Celtics played. And just that fascination of watching what was a true rivalry. It was East Coast, West Coast. You had, the race factor with Larry being white, Magic being black. What did you get from that rivalry that surprised you?
I'll tell you what I loved was, everyone obviously would think of that and think Magic Bird. And the guy I talked to who was the most obsessed with Larry Bird was Michael Cooper, who lived, breathed, slept everything Larry Bird. And he was a defensive stopper on that team, and he was a guy who they put whoever their best player was, he was going to cover. And he was all about Larry Bird, all about covering him, all about making him miserable, talking trash to him nonstop. And, if you look at the box score, Bird lit him up repeatedly, but Cooper still thinks he got the best of him.
Well, this is what Cooper once told me, that he said that, some of his guys would say, Bird's overrated because, he's white. And Cooper would always say, no, he's underrated.
Right.
And I always thought that was, because Cooper would always guard. He was the designated stopper. But, with Bird, you could see that back and forth. Did Bird talk junk to Cooper all the time?
Oh, nonstop. And Cooper told me one of his best stories was the first time he's guarding Larry Bird. And at the beginning, he did think, he was like, another typical overrated white hype guy. And he's covering Larry Bird, and they're jogging down the court early in the game. And Bird just going, I'm going to wear you out. I'm just going to wear you out. And Cooper's like, yeah, bring it. First time Bird gets the ball, pump fakes, somehow wraps a pass around to Parrish, layup, and they're jogging back down the court, and Bird goes, just wearing you out.
Did Magic get involved in that?
Oh, well, he was more of a trash talker than people thought. He wasn't a trash talker to Bird, but he was definitely a trash talker.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Oh, but he was a whisper trash talker.
Oh, okay.
But he wasn't at Bird's level, and he wasn't at Cooper's level, but he was definitely a trash talker. They were all, the trash talk during those series was fantastic. It was like grade A stuff.
And you look at Pat Riley's role. Did they become accidentally great? Or, things had to fall into place there, but I guess, tell us, kind of how it was formed, that it didn't seem like it was planned that way.
Well, it's very interesting. In 1979, when Jerry Buss bought the team, the first coach they hired was actually Jerry Tarkanian, and he was hired to be the Lakers coach. And he had an agent named Vic Weiss, who had a lot of mafia ties and mob ties. And during negotiations for Jerry Tarkanian's contract to coach the Lakers, Vic Weiss was found in the trunk of a car, murdered by mobsters. And Tarkanian turned down the job. And they then offered it to a guy named Jack McKinney, who was an assistant coach with Portland for 3 years. Jack McKinney takes the job. He goes 10-4 to start the '79 season. The Lakers love him. They're running up and down the court. First off day of the season.
Oh, the bicycle.
Jack McKinney takes a bike ride. He only had one assistant, Paul Westhead, and they were both living in Palos Verdes. He rides his bike to go see him, flips over the handlebars, lands on his head. He's in a coma, and he's a John Doe in a hospital. They can't find him anywhere. They finally find him. He suffers brain damage. Paul Westhead takes over, leads the Lakers to the title, running Jack McKinney's offense. The next season switches it all up, changes the offense to more of a slow-down offense. The Lakers all revolt, and Pat Riley, his assistant, is named the head coach of the Lakers, and that's how it happened. And he basically won by running Jack McKinney's run-and-gun system.
When did Riley become, sort of that Gordon Gekko role model? I mean, he was Showtime. He may have been Showtime before Showtime because of how he looked, his whole demeanor on the sidelines, the Armani stuff. But was there a moment where Riley sort of came in full?
I don't know if there was a moment, but it's kind of funny. If you look at the pictures from his early days as a coach, he was dressed okay. The hair wasn't greased back. He wore glasses. Like he was kind of okay. He wasn't nebbishy, but he wasn't like dashing.
Nebbishy.
And it's a good word. And once they, I think once they started, once the Celtics thing really kicked in, you start seeing him going very Armani and very GQ, and he became, an icon.
The cultural impact of the Lakers to Southern California.
Oh,
can you quantify?
Well, I mean, they really, to me, they came to they became Southern California. They became LA. And I actually think more than that, Dan, is the Lakers became the NBA. Like, before Jerry Buss bought the Lakers, they were just a team. They were a good team, but they were just a team. And Jerry Buss said, we're going to take this. We're going to take basketball, and we're going to make it an event. We're going to make it a culture. And you started seeing the celebrities lining the court. He started the Laker Girls. So you had Paul Abdul and the Laker Girls. He got rid of the organ player, and he brought in the USC marching band. And then they start piping in rock music during games. And now what you see in the NBA is what Jerry Buss started, where every team has the girls and every team has the music. That's all Showtime, and that's all from Jerry Buss.
Yeah, if anybody's underrated from Showtime, it's not a player. It's Jerry Buss. I just think what a brilliant visionary.
There are two guys to me. I agree with you 100%. I think there are two guys. I think Jerry Buss was a visionary, like you said, a visionary with the NBA. When people talk today about Mark Cuban and visionary, I think Cuban's great. But when people say, wow, he's done all this, I'm like, no. It was all Jerry Buss. And then the other guy, I think Jerry West, even though he's famous and the logo, a absolute personnel genius.
Yes.
Genius who did so many things to build that team. And rarely, he had one draft pick that eats him alive. It's 1984. They drafted Earl Jones out of the University of the District of Columbia, first round.
Yeah.
And that's the only one that really haunts him. His drafts were amazing.
What was it like off the floor, like boy band type groupies and that whole lifestyle that they had? It
was crazy great. They had a place in the Forum called the Forum Club, which was I didn't really know about, and it was basically Studio 54 goes to L.A. Before the game, you'd have Jerry Buss sitting at the head of a table with two, Playboy girls by his side, smoking his cigarettes, celebs all over the place, drinking back whiskey. And then after the game, it became this nightclub where you'd have all the hottest singers and the musicians and the actresses, and there'd be guys who'd have their coke dealers in the club, and the players would come running up. And a lot of Lakers told me, like, it became their like sixth man. Because if you play for the Cleveland Cavaliers and you're in the middle of this horrible season, you're excited to go to LA and you want the game to get over just so you can rush up and go in the Forum Club.
Did it come back to haunt the Lakers in any way?
I mean, I think you could look at the lifestyle and look at sort of Magic's announcement and say that LA, the lifestyle of the 80s certainly did. But I think for most of those guys, they look back almost like a fraternity. They look back as the greatest years of their life.
I was hosting SportsCenter when I had to throw out to that press conference when Magic announced that he was HIV positive. The impact that had on the team at the time.
Man, I think the impact on the NBA. I mean, I interviewed a ton of guys who had been Lakers, who were former Lakers, and were watching that on TV. And their first thought was, oh, my God, I can't believe this is happening. but their second thought was, I have to go get an HIV test right now. And I think, honestly, I think that's a moment in sports where everything changed when it came to sort of free sex and not being protected, and even the role of groupies in sports, I think, changed with that moment.
The book is Showtime, Magic, Kareem, Riley, and the Lakers dynasty of the 1980s. It hits bookshelves today. I can't wait to dive into it. I read the excerpts, Jeff. It looks like it's spectacular, and of course, I got to sort of live in that moment, so I look forward to reading it, and congrats on it, and good luck.
Hey, Dan, I want to ask you one thing.
Okay.
There's an ice cream place near us, and they say they sell your wife's ice cream. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
So good.
Oh, good. Yes.
So good. Please tell you what. I'm being serious. Ice cream is amazing.
Yeah, it's called Ice Cream, ISKREAM, and they're actually selling it nationwide. So thank you.
It's awesome.
I will tell you. All right, Jeff. Thank you, bud.
Thanks, Dan. Take care.
That's the book, Showtime.